Hello and welcome back to the Renew You Students YouTube channel. We've been going through the book of Mark and we are now getting to the concluding parts of it in which Jesus, the person who we've been trying to figure out who he is and what that means to us, has just been betrayed by Judas Iscariot, one of his own disciples. And even though he still loved him and showed love to him throughout his whole ministry, now he's been given into the hands of his enemies, and we will now find out what's going to happen to Jesus.
So they just got done with dinner, if you remember, from our last story. And so they're heading out into the night, and Jesus goes and he's been praying in a garden. And this kind of puts us maybe around 10 or 11-ish at night. And so then Judas comes and betrays him and shows the Pharisees where Jesus is. And at this point, the Pharisees kind of take Jesus into custody. And traditionally what happens at this point is Jesus would be maybe put on trial. He would, have some witnesses and some testimonies talking about, what Jesus had done wrong. And if he had been found guilty, there would be a punishment. But it all depends on what, he's accused of doing. And usually this would, be done like in the middle of the day. But what happens with Jesus is after they arrest him, they start kind of like waking up officials and things in the middle of the night. And so at like 2:00 in the morning, Jesus is having to answer questions and they're bringing forward witnesses and stuff. And so like even in our American systems today, we don't have like juries and court trials in the middle of the night. Usually there's like specific times that we do. It's like usually between like 8:00 in the morning and 5:00 p.m. And so to have like a trial in the middle of the night is crazy. And it feels wrong because it kind of is wrong. And so in this trial, what they're doing is they're trying to find fault or something wrong with Jesus. And the Bible tells us that they were bringing forward witnesses and things, and we're talking about the things that Jesus had done. But none of their stories about what Jesus had done wrong, none of them matched up. Like, so one person would say, oh, Jesus said this. And then another person would say that Jesus said the opposite of that. And so basically it was just a weird trial in which nobody actually knew what Jesus had actually done wrong. And he was being accused of all these things, none of which he had actually done. And so the officials bring him to one person who was in charge in government. And he interviewed Jesus being like, has anything anybody said, been true? Like, what is it that they're trying to testify against you? And Jesus didn't say anything. He just stood there, was just like, all right. And so they're trying to get, more information, what are they saying? And then the high priest, it says, asks him, so are you the Christ? And Jesus says, I am. And you will see the Son of Man seated in the hand of power and coming with the clouds of heaven. And everybody who heard that, they were basically like, well, that's it. You just blaspheme because you're not God, and that's only a place that can be held for God. And so they were like, all right, you, that's it. We're going to give you a real trial now, basically. So then Jesus gets taken to this other guy, who was his name was Pilate. And so then it's Pilate's turn to kind of figure out what is going on here. What is it that everybody's accusing you of? And he says, well, are you King of the Jews? And Jesus responds, you have said so. And then so at that point, everybody starts accusing him of other many things. And Jesus doesn't respond to any of them. He doesn't say anything one way or another. And they at this point they kind of beat him up a little bit. They do some other things, and But there's nothing really, anything that says for sure that he needs, a specific punishment any other way.
This is a very crazy story because it is not how the people of the time did trials. It's not how they would, find punishment to one who did wrong. Because honestly, the Pharisees just didn't like what Jesus was teaching, but at the same time, they were afraid of the people who had also admired Jesus. So that's why they do this all in the middle of the night. They don't do it in the front of daylight, in front of everybody else. They're like, okay, we need to deal with this problem because we don't like his teachings, almost away from people. And when, and for them, it was important that two people had to agree that that he had done something wrong. But the fact is that no one could agree upon what had happened meant that for their own law, for the Jewish law, he was supposed to be set free. But at that point, the high priest says, okay, I just answer me this question. And at that is where Jesus could have changed the whole thing. He could have denied it or have done something else. But it was really Jesus who was the one that decided that he was going to be taken further, that he was going to die. No, there wasn't really human person that had decided this, because Jesus knew what he had to do and how he was going to save people through his own sacrifice. So that is why then, once the Jewish people had decided, in a very unfair way, that he had to be punished and punished to death, they then brought him to what was going to be the Roman government, the actual people who could do the death penalty in that case. And that was when Pilate took him and couldn't understand, because he didn't really break any Roman law. He didn't really break any, law. It was really this fervor from the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the Jewish people, in which now Pilate, for political reasons, now had to figure out what to do with Jesus, because he didn't even find him guilty. So this was unfair to him by his own people. It was unfair in this political and social scheme. But Jesus still, at every moment, was the one who would either be silent when he was accused from all this wrongdoing, or spoke up, to lead him into this path. And at the same time, have people themselves be the one who recognize him. Because in most of the times, you see him, he wasn't actually saying, I am the Son of God. It was that people would ask him, and he would say, that is what you said. So, so many interesting facets of which we've seen how Jesus was the one who, ended up in this path, even though everything else was unfair of it.
And so next week we'll finish up this story, because we are still in the middle of a trial, basically, with no resolution yet. And so we'll figure out what happens next week, and we'll see you then.
See you.